All right, it's 10 o'clock. I know they're on a pretty tight timeline here, so let's get rolling. And we'll start talking a little bit about quality files. And if over the last couple of months, I've spent time asking a number of people what their definition is of a quality file. And for the most part, I think the answers are pretty consistent, impact on the play, make it big enough that everybody can see it, and I think even at one point, somebody even made up wristbands, if I'm not mistaken, that basically said, if three drunks in a bar can call it, then it must be a foul. Well, I'm not so sure that's all good standards, but it may play a role in what your determining factors are for quality fouls. But I think the bigger piece of the puzzle is to take a look at what makes up a quality foul and how do we get to determining what an actual quality foul is. And if you really break it down, what I've found is it really comes to 6 components. And so you got your quality file, and the first component is you got to know the rules. And it's not a matter of being able to quote the rule book. It's a matter of knowing the rules in a sense of being able to apply them accordingly to what you're presented with. So rules knowledge makes up one, in my opinion, 1/6 of what a quality file is. So now we look at the next piece. Mechanics is certainly a part of quality files. Many of you have always heard that you got to be in the right position to be able to see what you're calling to make a determination of what actually is a foul and, as some people have said, an impact on the play. So mechanics becomes your sixth or second piece of the puzzle. Your next piece is officiating axioms. I'll go into this a little more detail here in a few minutes, but if you look in your officiating manuals, you'll see a series of officiating axioms that apply to a variety of play types, fumbles, passes, kicks, so forth. So there's, those are things that you also have to incorporate when you're making a determination of what is a quality foul. Next one is philosophies. Kind of coincides with what officiating axioms would apply, but there are philosophies. Certainly, a lot of you are aware that if a runner's going to the ground and you have what would be a hold, we don't call. Or if you see somebody get a block in the back that doesn't, and that's all it is, when a runner's going out of bounds, we don't want that called. So those are some of the philosophies that you have to incorporate when deciding whether or not it is a quality foul. Character certainly, you wouldn't think that's a piece of a quality foul puzzle, but it certainly makes up a part of it. And character, how you carry yourself, how how confident you are in what you're doing, what's your process. All that plays a role in how you're making that determination of what's a quality foul. And now, your last piece is conduct ethics. One of the biggest things we're out there to do is keep an even playing field. We're supposed to be unbiased. We're supposed to be, not have an impact on the game in the sense that we're playing a role for one side or the other. We're trying to keep an even playing field and assure that people aren't gaining a particular advantage over their opponents. So if we break down each one of these, and you look at what rules knowledge is, it really provides the standards and outlines the requirements for what constitutes a foul. You can go through the rule book, you can read the rule, it gives you some elements of definition. It also provides you with some play scenarios that'll indicate what is and isn't a foul. So, it's great, like I've said, know the rule book, but there's a practical application of it, and you really have to work on that practicality. Mechanics, mechanics are probably the biggest piece of this puzzle. You've got to master the responsibilities for the position you're assigned. And you've got to know where to be, what to be. You got to know your initial responsibilities and when to shift. Um, you got to be able to put yourself in the proper position to see the entire action. And probably one of the hardest ones for young officials is don't be in a hurry. Patience, patience, patience. And just slow yourself down. When you think you're going slow, work to go even slower. And just remember, you don't have to be in a hurry to get where you need to be. What you really need to do is try to make sure that you're there ahead of time, because the more distance you put between yourself and the particular situation that you are attempting to view, the more you're going to see. And so those are some things that you want to remember. Okay, what's officiating axioms? See everything you call, but don't call everything you see. Probably one of the hardest things to do in officiating. We have a tendency to see 90 or 85 to 90% of the play, but we don't see 100% of the play. We react to the 90%, and that's about what your accuracy rate's going to be. You want to be 100%. Quality foul is 100%. And the way to do that is see the entire action to make your determination. So that's one piece. See the ball before blowing the whistle. You always need to know the status of the ball, regardless of what kind of foul you're calling. Is it a dead ball? Is it a live ball? Is the runner going to the ground? Is the runner going out of bounds? Is the ball in the air? There's so many things that the status of the ball will dictate to you whether or not it's even a foul to begin with, or whether it meets the standard of what that foul would be. Always be a good dead ball official. That's part of what we do. Quality fouls, safety fouls, those all fall into keeping the playing field even and not allow anybody to gain a substantial advantage. You want to have excellent communication with coaches, players, and other officials. That's one of the standard axioms. Well, how does that affect quality foul? How you explain what you do goes a long way in determining whether or not you're going to continue to be successful. We can't get angry. We can't get upset. We explain what we did and how we did it. And, more often than not, you're going to get a negative response. More often than not, they're not going to like it, but they will accept it. Concentration. I can tell you, if you're not mentally exhausted when a game ends, then the chances are pretty good that you didn't have 100% concentration throughout the game. Most plays average somewhere around 7 seconds. That concentration level should be at its highest, but it doesn't end after the ball's dead, because there's a lot of stuff that occurs between plays that you need to make sure that you are fully aware of. Preventive officiating, we do a lot of this. We try to work with players, we try to work with coaches, but just remember, preventive officiating is not coaching. Preventive officiating isn't telling them how to do it. It's basically telling them that you need to change the way you're doing things because you're on the edge of a foul. And you have to be able to have the ability to communicate that to the players and coaches so they can help you accomplish avoiding fouls at all. And I think one of the hardest ones, leading to quality fouls, if you miss one, don't look back, always look ahead. That plays over. And to me, it's one of the hardest things to do is you keep thinking about a play 5, 10, 15 plays ago. And if you continue to do that, it's going to affect your ability to officiate the next 10 or 15 plays. So we have to be ones that have extremely short memories. I kind of look at it compared to the defensive backs. They're going to get beat once in a while. They can't let that one play affect the other 85 or 90 plays they're going to be involved in that they want to do the best they can. Philosophies, oops, sorry. Philosophy is basically based on rules that are applied when making foul decisions. I mean, if you look in the manual, generally, I mean, they're noted on pages and they affect, you can see from those examples, and they're all laid out in the book, what they affect. And those philosophies are going to have a huge impact on whether or not you're going to call a foul. It doesn't mean it doesn't meet all the criteria, but what it is lacking is the application of the philosophies to apply that particular play. And I mentioned some of them previously, involving, blocking and fumbles, those kinds of things. You have to know what those are, and they have to become a part of your decision-making process. Character. um, you know, have patience, but also have ambition. You really have to slow yourself down and see everything. Be patient. Don't be in a hurry. But don't be afraid. Don't be bashful and thinking you can hide or anything like that. When it's time to step up, step up. um, be receptive. I think this is probably one of the biggest things that some officials struggle with is the constructive criticism piece in the sense that, when somebody talks to you about a foul or you missed one or they critique one that you called, and it doesn't meet the entire criteria, be receptive to what that says, incorporate that as you move forward. Don't be negative. Don't try to justify it. I think many of us attempt to do that, and that's just going to lead us down the wrong path. Uh, as I noted, be open to constructive criticism. Um, I think a lot of times officials are their own worst enemies in the sense of how they personally critique themselves. But I can also tell you that some of the best critiques you're going to get are going to be from fellow officials and taking a look at it from a much more outside and objective point of view. Um, be honest about your expectations. Be honest about what happened. If you're honest with yourself, it's a lot easier to be honest with others. And I think that's where we have a tendency to try to um, be walking on eggshells at times and not tell people what truly happened. Have passion. A lot of people talk about passion. And the last one, I'm sorry about that, be courageous. Don't be afraid to make a call when it's necessary to make a call. No time left on the clock, big play in the end zone. Just be, step up and do what you need to do. Those are all important aspects. And your code of ethics, impartial enforcement of the rules. You see the little gavel there in reference to courts. I mean, it's similar to the implication of law, but we want to be impartial. Um, uh, you got to be careful. In a sense, we do have an element of authority, but don't overstep your bounds with that. We're not out there to make people look bad. We're out there to, conduct ourselves in a professional manner and make sure the game flows evenly. And all this, uh, honor, dignity of the profession, present how you present yourself, punctuality, stuff like that, work with each other. And that piece is probably important as far as the constructive of the communication piece, I'm sorry, is working with each other. How you communicate what you have, how you communicate information to each other is going to have a big bearing on the quality of what we do. Um, and we try to stay away from drawing attention to ourselves. But unfortunately, every time a yellow marker goes down on the field, it has a tendency to draw attention to the officiating piece of things, especially if it's in a critical part of the game. And be that as it may, if it's a quality, everybody's going to see it your way. So if you look at a quality foul and you look at the six things that we just talked about, all those things help in making decisions and your decision-making process of whether or not you have a quality file. And it's important that you understand that if you can improve rules knowledge by 1%, I get better at mechanics by 1%, I understand philosophies by 1%, all that adds up. You just improved your quality of officiating, your quality files. Uh, Now, if we look at some of the things that, and if we could have somebody spell correctly, we'd be in good shape. But if you look at, some of the true factors, I would say, in regards to quality, you got to see the entire action. Don't react to something that I only saw 90% of it. That's probably one of our biggest fallacies. Indicators are a very good method of ensuring that you're seeing the entire action. When we talk about DPI, one of the obvious indicators is that if you have somebody that's in chase mode, well, that immediately tells you that there's certain things they can and can't do, and it probably is going to make it a bit easier to make that determination. But you're seeing it from beginning to end because you're identifying what those indicators are and applying them to that decision-making process. And one of the biggest ones I can tell you is make sure you include the status of the ball. That, deciding whether it meets the criteria of a foul. Is he holding? Yeah, he's got a double hook and restrict, but where's the ball? Is it at the other side? Is the runner going to the ground? All that has a big bearing on whether or not it's going to end up being a foul. And, again, I can't emphasize enough, don't be in a hurry. Give yourself ample opportunity to apply all these things to your decision-making process. You have more time than you think. It may not seem like much. I mean, like I said before, the average play is 7 seconds. And so, somewhere in there, you're going to make a determination of whatever action you're viewing is going to meet the standard and meet the criteria for a foul. But give yourself an opportunity to digest all these things that we talked about. And there's a lot of them. And you can't take 20 seconds. You probably only have about two. But two is a lot better than one. It's a lot better than a half. So take it, run with it, and utilize it. And I think in the end, when you decide whether or not whatever action you see is a foul, incorporating all these things, I think will help you immensely. And again, I go back, remember the 1% rule. If you can improve all those things by 1%, that's total 6%. You've just upped your game that much more. And that investment in those 6 items, I think will help you and become much better in deciding what is and isn't a foul, and in this case, a quality foul. So I'll stop there. And I'll open it up for questions. Um, Anybody have any questions or comments they want to make in
Yeah,
reference to what we talked about?
yeah, Bob. This is Eric again. One of the things that I think you hit on, but I didn't hear you use the term specifically. You talked about dead ball officiating, but how valuable is off the ball officiating in terms of being able to recognize a quality foul?
Well, I think if you incorporate mechanics in that, and everybody has a responsibility, part of the mechanical aspects of things is where we keep our eyes. We don't want to become ball watchers. We all have a visual responsibility on the field. And, depending on how many officials you're working at, 5, 6, 7, or 8, you all have a area of responsibility. And what we try to do, if you triangulate that, you be in the point and triangulating it out, that should cross over each other. And so we should be able to visually see the entire field and 22 players. If you can't, if you're not in a position to do that, especially, those that are farther away, and as I said, distance is our friend, I think, you got to rethink your mechanical piece of the puzzle. But I think, to your point, Eric, I think we can't be ball watchers. We have to be off-ball watchers. And, we have people that are responsible for forward progress. We have people that are responsible for quarterbacks, runners, and that kind of stuff. We also have people that are responsible for all the other 18 to 20 players that are involved outside of where that football is. So, good point.
Thanks.
Anyone else have questions or comments? I can go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask the same thing. I mean, I didn't hear the entire presentation, but I was going to say this is the time to ask the questions as it relates to quality files. It looks like, oh, I think that was someone tech putting something there. But go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
No, I'm fine. I was just,
Hey, Bob, this is Bob Holcomb.
yes, sir.
If now we've made a quality foul call, carry it one step further. Let's say that you've made a call. How should you proceed so that it gets carried forward and completed properly? You're all jacked up, you've made a call, that type of things. What would you do to carry it forward to get it to its completion?
I think what it comes down to is making sure that you're patient. When you communicate something to somebody, namely in this case your referee, you got to do it in such a fashion that he's going to show a lot of confidence in what he's saying. So how you present it to him, I have holding offense number 72 at the, whatever it is, at the line of scrimmage, that kind of stuff. I think you have to be confident in how you communicate it. That gives your referee confidence in providing it to everybody else. If it's multiple flags, then you have to make sure that you communicate it clearly and crispy with each other, so they can do the same thing. But I think you have to have patience, you have to have confidence in how you're describing it, and just make sure that you're very much under control. Nonverbal actions speak louder than words. And you can pretty much tell when somebody isn't confident in what they're doing. Shoulders, how they carry themselves, the hesitations in certain ways, the quickness from which they leave the referee. Those kinds of things are indicators of elements of confidence. So be very much under control when you do it, and I think it'll come across much better. People laugh when I tell them this, but we're going to be wrong at times, whether we like it or not. It's going to happen. We might forget one of the things that we should have incorporated, whatever that is. But at the same time, if you're wrong strong, the likelihood is it'll come across that way, and it won't get questioned at that time. It'll come out well. In the end, yeah, it might be wrong, but it wasn't at the time you did what you did, and you showed that element of confidence and had that professional appearance. So, good question.
Okay, Bob, Ken Zelmansky. Can you expand on that a little bit? Just how do you take somebody off a call?
That's probably one of the more difficult things to do. I think when we put a flag down, I think we're all pretty confident in what we did. I think probably the biggest thing and our biggest Achilles heel is that we don't always see the entire action. We're reacting to something, but we didn't see it from beginning to end. And I think we as off officials who are coming in I saw the whole thing, and that whatever he's throwing didn't happen. I think we have to ask the right questions. And one of the questions you should be asking is, did you see the entire action? I think that's probably the most important question. And if they say they did, then you can expand on it and to the point where, well, I saw the entire action and I don't have whatever it is, offensive holding. And then you can, kind of short version it as best you can to come to a conclusion. But I think we need to ask the right questions. Going in, charging in there and saying, pick up your flag, probably is not going to cut it. And it's probably going to create more crew dissension than anything else. So I think asking the right questions, developing a sense of trust, I think those are all ways that I think we can do a better job in helping one another as we move forward.
All right. Well, I think that's about it. I appreciate you leading this session, Wags, and on quality files. Appreciate everyone joining. So our next session, our position session, breakout sessions are going to start here shortly. So we don't have any other questions out in this session, and then we can go to the proper breakout session. All right. Thanks again, Bob. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, everyone. Good luck and talk soon.
Yep. Thanks.